would you do if you saw change as opportunity? If you saw challenges as stepping stones to your goals? And if instead of saying to yourself, I can't, you said to yourself, I can, and I will? Well, this is what I did. The world's toughest row brings together teams from all walks of life, united by the same objective, to take on the unique challenge of crossing an ocean in a rowing boat. The atmosphere is electric as people help each other prepare for the challenge of the mighty Atlantic Ocean. Teams battle with sleep deprivation, salt sores, and physical extremes inflicted by the race. Rowers are left with their own thoughts, an expanse of the ocean, and the job of getting the boat safely to the other side. It looks pretty bad, doesn't it? Does anyone fancy giving it a go? No, it's all right, I'm not recruiting. So I did that over Christmas and New Year 2021-2022, taking a 2-month sabbatical from my corporate role leading a marketing team. We rowed over 3,000 miles from La Gomera in the Canaries to Antigua in the Caribbean, taking around 1.5 million oar strokes, which took us 40 days. That's like rowing from now until early December. And if you think that sounds boring, don't worry, because there were plenty of storms to keep it interesting. So sometimes it was like being on a roller coaster, facing 40-foot waves with the water crashing over you, or flying fish landing in your lap, or bouncing off your bum. That was my New Year's Eve treat. And there's absolutely no one else around, certainly no support boat to bring you a gin and tonic at sundown. You're literally out there on your own. And when you're not actually physically rowing, you might be nursing salt sores, picking dead fish out of the boat's deck. You may be catnapping for a maximum of 90 minutes, none of this 8 hours business, or stuffing your face with 5,000 calories. And you wash that down with 5 to 10 litres of water, seawater. And what goes in must naturally also come out. But as you saw from the video there, the boats are hardly the lap of luxury. There's no toilet on board. And so rowers use a bucket, a regular builder's bucket. And there's a technique that you have to master called bucket and chuck it. Only sometimes the chuck it bit doesn't go entirely according to plan. So you can probably appreciate then why more people have chosen to go to space than row an ocean. And you're probably also wondering why on earth I thought it sounded like a good idea. Well, you see, I had my reasons, because when it was first suggested, I was recovering from fairly major surgery and I was enjoying getting back into a bit of exercise again. I was doing that juggling thing of juggling working alongside parenting my 3 small children who were 2, 4 and 6 at the time. And then throw into that mix the hand grenade that was COVID. And quite honestly, I was doing a fairly lousy job of homeschooling the kids. Is there anyone else still traumatised by homeschooling? Seeing a few kind of nods. Well, so to a weary and easily led mother of 3, the prospect then of getting away from all of that, getting out of the house for 2 months, with a cheeky little holiday in Antigua at the end of it, was strangely compelling. So I said yes. Now, happily, as you can see, I live to tell the tale, and that's really why I'm here with you today. It's to share my journey from marketer to mariner, and to share with you some of the mindset tips that I've learned along the way. So it's about building your mental resilience to help you through change, help you through challenges, and achieve your goals. And those 3 things are firstly about finding your superpower. So what's your USP? What's the thing that makes you you? And then it's about reframing, so turning negatives into positives, challenges into opportunities. And it's lastly about understanding your why, your inner purpose and motivation for getting through. We've heard a lot today about all of the change that we're experiencing at the moment in unprecedented quantities. So I hope that my experience helps you as you and your teams continue to face into this change. So how do you build your mental resilience? How do you keep mentally strong and keep a positive attitude when faced with a changing world? Well, for me, it's all about what I call mindset over matter. And yes, it's a cliche, but where there's a will, there's a way. If your mind is willing, then your body will follow. If you can build a positive mindset and apply it to everything life throws at you, then you will find a way through change and challenges. And of course, it's easy for me to just stand here and tell you all to go and have a positive mindset. And I do have 3 tips to share, but first I'm going to start my story. And this is really where my journey across the Atlantic first began. And it's a story about a dodgy hip. Now, a few weeks after my eldest child was born, I started to get some hip pain. It was intermittent but severe, and it was the kind of pain that would literally stop me in my tracks. And if you're chasing a toddler or 2 or 3 around a car park, then it's far from ideal. And after about 3 years of being passed from medical pillar to post, I finally found myself sat in front of a hip surgeon who told me that my hip was, in his words, 100% screwed. I don't think it's a technical term. He told me that 99% of people with a hip in my condition couldn't even walk down the road, let alone run like I could at the time for an hour. So at the ripe old age of 39, I needed a full hip replacement. But not the kind of person to get down in the mouth about these trifling inconveniences. I honestly remember driving away from my appointment that day with a feeling that I can really only describe as some kind of elation. And I knew that was an odd reaction to that news. But when I stopped to reflect, I realised it was for 2 reasons. Firstly, in my head, I'd interpreted what he'd said to me about still being able to run when most people couldn't even walk as, I'm nails. I honestly thought, I'm tough as old boots. This isn't going to get me down. I was putting a positive spin on what was objectively a negative message. And that's what we do as marketers, isn't it? We put a positive spin on things. And number 2, there was a solution. Yeah, it might mean fairly major surgery and some rehab, but there was a silver lining to my pain. There was a way for me to get back to doing the things that I loved again. I saw surgery and rehab not as a challenge, but as an opportunity. It was an opportunity for me to be me again. Now, let me talk about those reactions a little bit more. I'm nails is a label that I've given myself. It's a belief that I'm tough, I'm resilient, I can get through anything. It's my superpower. And it's something that I've drawn on to help me get through all of the change and the challenges that I've faced over recent years. So if being nails is my superpower, then what's yours? What's your unique strength, your USP, the thing that you can draw on to help you through any change or challenges that you're facing? Now, going back to my reaction to needing surgery and seeing it as an opportunity, not a challenge, well, that's all about having a growth mindset. It's about reframing negatives as positives. It's about having a glass half full, not a glass half empty approach. And you might be thinking that's easier said than done. But have a think about this. If something goes wrong, have you ever thought, why me? Or when faced with something difficult, I can't do it. I think we can probably all own up to both of those things. But you can completely change your perspective by adding a 3-letter word to those phrases. So instead of why me, why not me? And instead of I can't do it, I can't do it yet. But I will find a way. Because where there's a will, there's a way. Now, a few weeks after my hip replacement, my sister Pip called me and she said, I've got a boat, do you want to row the Atlantic? I appreciate that's a strange thing to hear. So let me fill you in on a bit of the background. You see, rowing the Atlantic had been a lifelong dream. Not of mine, I'd frankly never heard of it for 40 years, but of my brother-in-law, David, my sister's husband. David had read a book about rowing the Atlantic when he was just 7, and from that day on, he decided it was something he wanted to do. And sure enough, in early 2020, he did it. which is how Pip, my sister, came to be in possession of a fairly old and battered 28-foot ocean rowing boat. So to her question, do you want to row the Atlantic with me? Well, no, was my response, clearly, as any normal person would. I said, well, I can't possibly. I've just had a hip replacement. The kids are too small. I can't leave them for that long. But Pip can be pretty persuasive. You might even say bossy. And she said something to me which really resonated, and it's a lesson that will stay with me for life. She said, stop giving me reasons why you can't and start giving me reasons why you can. That simple thing she said lit a spark in me. And when I put down the phone, I was grinning from ear to ear, and I had this fire in my belly because I knew I was going to say yes. You see, I'd realised that the only person standing in my way was me, and that the power to say yes lay firmly in my hands. Of course, I couldn't do it yet, but this shiny new hip had given me a new lease of life. It wasn't an excuse to say no. It was my reason to say yes. It was my can. And because I'd found my can, I said yes. And in doing that, I took the first step on the long road to achieving something extraordinary. Now, I'm fast forwarding 2 years now to the end of the race. You saw the video at the start, so you know we finished it. And here we are again, wafting our flares in the air. We completed the row in 40 days, smashing our goal of 45 days. Incidentally, you might recall that my brother-in-law David did the race as well. Well, his crew of 5 men completed it in 41 days. One up to the girls. You can imagine how Christmas dinner conversations go down in our family. So this bunch of midlife mums in a frankly equally old and creaking boat came 13th out of a fleet of 37 crews. We couldn't believe it, and nor could anyone else really, because I think being midlife mums, we were expected just to float in somewhere near the back of the fleet. But we worked really hard, and we showed that ordinary people like us can achieve extraordinary things. Now, if you think that that's enough excitement for a little while, life had another trick up its sleeve. I finished the race, was reunited with my family in Antigua. I went back home, went back to work. Life seemed to be getting back to normal. I was still on this high, though, from the row. I was still guzzling chocolate to put back on the 10 kilos that I'd lost in weight. Life was going pretty well, but then life did what it always tends to do, just when you think it's going so well. And it well and truly burst my bubble. Because just a few weeks after completing the row, just a few weeks after this photo was taken, I was diagnosed with stage 3 bowel cancer. Talk about a punch in the guts. Apparently the tumour had been growing for a long time, probably over a year, but I'd known nothing about it. Now when we look back, there were the original signs in the second half of the row, and on the penultimate day we held the Mothership Awards, where we gave out things like Best Mother, Worst Mother, or in my case, Mother most likely to need an inconvenient poo on night shift. It was a catchy title, the envy of the crew. Of course, we know now that there was a reason for it, other than the strange thing that we were doing, the strange food that we were eating. So I completed one of the world's toughest endurance events, while my body was coping with advanced cancer. I went from this to this. In the blink of an eye, my world kind of turned upside down. And it was almost inconceivable to me that this was happening. I mean, I was young, in cancer terms at least, and I was fitter and stronger than I'd ever been in my life. And I think it would have been understandable for me at this point to think, why me? But I'm an eternal optimist, and turning it on its head, and all of the reasons that I gave for why me, young, fit and strong, were precisely the reasons that I was able to think, do you know what? Why not me? Simply adding that one little word enabled me to think about this next challenge in a very different way. Because I'm young, because I'm fit, and because I'm strong, and because I have this superpower of being nails, which I've just proven through rowing the Atlantic, I know I'm better placed than almost anyone else to get through this. And there's really nothing like a cancer ward to put things into perspective. And I remember walking, or more accurately, shuffling around the ward in the 2 or 3 days following my surgery and looking at some of the other patients in their beds who seemed to lack the strength to even push themselves up to sitting. And I honestly remember thinking, how lucky am I to be on my feet, moving around, with the strength and the fitness to recover quickly. And I did, because here I am just 3 days later, back home, and full of this rebellious hope. I'm happy to be home. I'm happy to have these 6 holes in my tummy, but to be rid of the tumour. I'm happy to be alive. And that's the power of mindset over matter. But everybody can harness it. I am just an ordinary working mum. I'm a wife, daughter, sister. I'm not an elite athlete. I'm not a superhero. But I found my superpower, and I used that to get me through. So what can you think about in a different way? What challenges can you re-script? Reframing is an incredibly powerful tool that we can all use to change our perspective on a situation. Now, my final tip for building your mental resilience is understanding your why, your inner purpose, your motivation for getting through and finding the silver lining. When you're facing challenges, it's so important to anchor yourself in why you need to get through them. What's your light at the end of the tunnel that's going to help you pick yourself up each time you're knocked down? And it's not the business goal, or in my case, the finishing line, but it's your inner motivation for getting there and achieving those things. During the 2 years of training for the row and then the row itself, the thing that really motivated me, my why, was these guys, my kids. I know I implied at the beginning that I was keen to get away from them, but COVID did that. Genuinely, these guys were my why. I wanted to inspire them to dream big and to show them that with the right mindset, and yes, a lot of hard work, ordinary people, like their mum, can achieve extraordinary things. And that's something that united us all as a crew. And visualising our children on the dockside when we finished is something that kept us going through those 40 long days and nights. And they've continued to be my motivation for getting through my cancer treatment, because I don't want these guys growing up without their mum. But I also want to see them grow up and have their own amazing adventures. So I'm doing everything I can to make sure cancer doesn't stick its oar in. So what's your why? What's your inner purpose, your motivation for getting through any challenges or changes that you're facing? Yes, you'll have your business goals, but why is it important to you personally that you achieve them? Find your why and see how it can help you through. So I've shared my 3 tips for how you can think about building your mental resilience to help you navigate change, overcome challenges and achieve your goals. And it's about finding your superpower, your USP. It's about reframing challenges as opportunities. And it's about understanding your why, finding that thing that's going to help you pick yourself up when you're knocked down. If you can harness the power of mindset over matter, then I have no doubt that you'll be able to navigate all of this change that we're facing, and you will smash your goals too. Thank you very much.